Hey there, welcome back to Innovate Africa. As you know, this is the show where we focus on innovative individuals or businesses or both that impact lives on the African continent. It's that simple. It's a very simple brief. If what you're doing does not impact lives, we don't talk to you. So why am I talking to a lawyer today? I mean, you know the lawyer jokes, right? What do you call a lawyer at the bottom of the ocean? A very good idea. Well, unless you're talking to Adrian Dommisse. I mean, Adrian is, and I've spoken to him over the last couple of years, he is a hotshot lawyer, but he is fighting in the right corner. What am I talking about? This is the man, along with a team of about 10 or 11 people, that really works with high growth startups. And if we're going to impact lives on the African continent, that is where we need to be doing the work. Adrian Dommisse, what a pleasure having you on the show and being able to have this conversation. So before we start, what's your favorite lawyer joke?
Probably, why don't lawyers get attacked by sharks? Professional courtesy.
I love it. I love it. So before you moved on from being a shark, what was your previous life like? I mean, did you get into investment banking? Did you work for big law firms? Because I mean, that's what sharks do, right?
That's exactly right. I was working for the largest law firm in the country at the time, in the late 90s. And my darling wife said that she'd love to live overseas for a while. And I said, great, I'll go and live in London. But one thing I won't do is work as a lawyer in London, because I wanted to have some commercial experience. So became the ultimate shark and an investment banker in our city of London. And I lasted, it took me 4 years to get the job. I lasted 18 months in it. It just wasn't really me, even for a lawyer from South Africa. And then returned to South Africa with our 2 kids, realized I wanted to live in South Africa forever, and I wanted my kids to, but also wanted to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
Again, I'd missed that. I'd been out of law for nearly 7 years at the time. So I went to the next biggest law firm in the country and worked there. And basically what happens is, over a period of time, once I was now quite a bit older, constantly working till 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
That's fine. The trouble is when you ask yourself the question of why, and you can't really answer the question why. You can't really necessarily find meaning in working for one pharmaceutical company, buying another pharmaceutical company. And more importantly, I'm joking about that. I'm sure they do provide an amazingly good role, despite Trump's ideas. But not actually having the relationship, that bugs me. And then one day I just had a tap on the shoulder from a friend who said he's got a sole practitioner legal practice in the suburbs. Would I like to start up my own and take his excess work? And I said, you must be joking. I'm a corporate lawyer.
Yeah.
I've worked as an investment banker, and you want me to come work in the suburbs on my own? So a month later, I was working in the suburbs on my own.
Okay, well, that tipping point, I would imagine, was that question you asked yourself that you could not answer. Because
Exactly, yeah.
I remember, being on radio for 28 years, at one stage, I asked myself, why the heck am I doing this? Because the news cycle was one negative news cycle after the other. One of the things that we used to do was rather talk about entrepreneurship, because at least you're talking about the problems, but with a solutions lens on. And it was COVID that actually gave me my tipping point. I was tired. I did not want to listen to negative news again. And I knew, because of the way my contract was actually structured, I could get out and maybe get about a year of leeway to try and figure out what I'm going to do next. So let's talk a little bit about that tipping point, right? So yeah, the next week you were in the suburbs, but there's a journey that takes you to there. You go from the question to work into the suburbs. What happened in between?
So critical. And in fact, that tipping point, as you'll know, it gives you that resilience to do it, right? Because the reason why not many people do it is because it's bloody hard.
Yeah.
And you have to suffer. And if you don't have a reason for suffering, you fade. So the power of the tipping point, the power of, oh my gosh, that's my answer. That's the why.
Right.
And luckily I had 6 months of leeway to set up to not take a salary. And during that time I said, if I'm going to do one thing in these 6 months, I'm going to invest in relationships. So I gave discounts left, right, and center. I think clients were like, why is this guy giving us a discount? There's something suspicious going on here.
Yeah.
Thinking that was how you build a relationship, and then realizing over time, a relationship is about engaging with people, understanding the situation, and building a relationship, which is almost unheard of at the time, coming from where I came from, of being someone the original trusted advisor. Now that's an important point because there's a beautiful book called The Trusted Advisor, which is an amazing book, but then that term got used so badly that every time he says, it's like nauseating. Anyway, in this book, The Trusted Advisor, the author talks about how I think it was the agent for, let's say, someone amazing like Michael Jordan.
Right.
And Michael Jordan would engage this guy on all his big challenges, marital problems, financial decisions, the whole deal. Fundamentally because he knew one thing, not that this guy was clever, but he could trust him.
Yeah.
He's going to give an answer that's unvarnished and not intended to manipulate. And I think that's where we as lawyers forget that that's actually what our clients want. So I said, well, that's great. And I'll take the perspective. But the only problem I have now is I'm in the southern suburbs in Cape Town in 2009,
Right.
and I have no clients, and there are no clients available. I'm not going to go out and get a big retailer or bank as a client because they already have lawyers, and in Cape Town you have your relationships forever. So we decided to focus on owner-founded businesses, but specifically the businesses that want to grow ambitiously and therefore could use our skills of venture capital, international structuring, and M&A work. But it was a weird application of those skills, I would say.
And then, I mean, if you look at your own, because I like delving into the person, him or herself as well. So you run the business, you are the business, you're the owner of the business. If you did the juxtaposition between your previous life and where you are at the moment, what would you say is the biggest difference personally?
Oh, absolutely. It's about personal choice and freedom. Being able to make the decisions about being able to take the risks. So the risks in our world are giving clients usable advice without backing yourself so much that it becomes much more expensive and it becomes hard to understand. So really giving that straight advice. But then also in my personal capacity, taking, knowing that I can take time off and absorb the consequences, which is to work when other people don't work. I think that's probably it.
The first time I heard your name, I think it was Alison from Endeavour who spoke to me about you, or it was someone in the circles. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Ali's amazing. And this picture that was created was this lawyer with this cape going out fighting for the entrepreneurs, fighting for the high growth startups. And I want to delve into some of the stories, right? So you, in the southern suburbs, you start building this base. You end up getting these amazing businesses that you can now write about in a book. And I hope you do, again, share some of those stories. Let's talk about some of the stories that really defines the work that you do. Some brands that we know, the work you've done for them, and some of the valuable lessons that you've learned.
Yeah, well, then the story's got to start with a client called Zona, Z-O-O-N-A. Yeah. They were I think they were probably the first company I'd ever heard of who raised a Series A out of Africa. And they were putting together a payment system, a non-cash payment system in Zambia, which they were going to roll out across the continent. And the reason why that my story's got to start with them is that was my first opportunity to completely immerse myself in a group of founders. Mike, Keith, Brad, Brett. And then Mike went on to write a book about the story after called Failing to Win, I think it was called, which I appeared in, I think, once. But anyway, the point is I'm in it. And that was remarkable because they were the perfect startup group of founders. They realized they needed a high-skilled lawyer, which frankly I'd had with my experience, and it was a weird application of these sort of corporate finance skills in this world. But it's where I want to work. And they were just amazingly honest, honest, capable, skilled people, radically and ambitious.
Right.
And they said, if we're going to create $1 billion company, we need a lawyer on our side, to the point where I would attend their board meetings with their VC investors. And that was fascinating. So I would advise the founders directly. So that's the most important thing, that personal connection, the opportunity to really understand what a founder, what their goal is, what their hopes and dreams are.
Right.
And then match my services to that, which is really special. And then understand the commercial context of sitting at these board meetings. And Mike Quinn, the CEO at the time, was the biggest board nerd. You'd get board packs, 60 pages, 3-day board meetings sometimes. Maybe it was 2 days. But the point was a long time.
Yeah.
Longest board meeting any of these VC investors ever had. You came out of there with not just understanding of the business, but case studies, competitors, opportunities. You came out there inspired to start a payments business. Anyway, so grew very close to them, to the point where we even had one of our team attorneys actually in their premises, I think 3 or 4 days a week.
Right.
At one point. So it was a really amazing opportunity to watch this company grow. We did their material financing rounds, which is sometimes dramatically stressful.
Right.
And then they frankly became very big. And though really love Keith, Mike, Brett, and Brad, well, what happened is they just became a big corporation with now, instead of having 20 employees,
Yeah.
they had 150.
Okay.
And Mike said to me at one point, he said, Adrian, what's the future here? And I said, well, they're about to raise their Series B. It's a massive number. I'm not really engaged with you guys anymore. Right. And he said to me, well, what do you think I should do? And I think, well, I think it's time, considering who you're negotiating with, it's probably time you went with a big law firm, big brand law firm, because I don't really think that our value is really being delivered.
Yeah.
And that hasn't happened with all our clients. All of them stay sort of relevant, but it's a weird and a bit of a sad fact that it has happened with some clients. But then I feel that's just being honest, when the energy and love is gone, then I'm just, then I'm back to being the 1 o'clock in the morning. Why am I acting for a firm company I'm not connected with? And then they went on. They raised a material amount of money, and they raised the third round, which failed at the last minute, and that actually put them, unfortunately,
under.
Derailed them. No, they never went under. Actually, they went away as a client for about 7 years. They came back, and I helped their sale to Chipper Cash.
Okay.
Which was literally about 7 years after that, and still have a great relationship with all those individuals.
You do a lot of other good work as well. So you help customers, or your clients at least, with putting those deals together.
The international structuring.
And the international structuring in particular, getting them to exit, etc. But you're also doing a lot of work with the Startup Act and a lot of other key things that are, I think, pertinent to the success of South Africa. Just run us through some of these projects that you're working on at the moment and why they actually mean so much to you.
Yes, great. Well, the Startup Act is an excellent example. I just contribute to it. As one of the committee members. It's put together by an amazing group of people. Yeah. I think originally Simodise, SA Startup Act, the SA SME Fund, even SAVCA, I think, has a hand in there. Endeavour supported wonderfully. Right. You mentioned Adekoli again. And it's one of the directors, Ali Amani from Web Wenzel. She's the chairperson. So you've got this incredible group of people, which is it's a real honor to brainstorm with them, especially in our world where we're quite insular otherwise. And what happened is, I believe that the backstory is that there was a huge exit, and the founder said, the exit had to be structured in a way that was that overcame exchange controls and various other items that ordinarily may not have been able to be overcome because of South African red tape and law. Right. And he or she said that we can't go on like this. In a world where it's hard to create a startup in Silicon Valley. It's 100 times harder to do it in Africa. Right. And we don't need more trouble, more challenges. So let's solve this. So the Startup Act Committee then sought to deal with various challenges. My specific portfolio is around the challenges of allowing a South African company to raise funding from an offshore investor who won't put the money into a South African company. Because they frankly say, well, I'm going to put dollars, I've got to exchange it immediately into rands, then it's subject to devaluation, all that sort of stuff. Plus, I don't really trust your taxation authority or your laws or whoever the next governing party might be. Those are noise.
Politicians, I think, are the worst. But anyway,
social, political, economic risks.
Yeah, 100%.
So you've got to put offshore. And then, so there are a couple of really obvious challenges there. And we've been really honored by South African standards of engaging directly with the South African Receiver of Revenue and the South African National Treasury related to the Reserve Bank.
Yes.
These two entities, SARS and SARB, they basically manage exchange controls. And before 3 or 4 years ago, it was very hard. Frankly, it was impossible to get a direct audience with any of those entities, right. The decision makers. And the SA Startup Act, because it's this group of really impressive people, the doors have been opened, and we're having direct dialogue there. Success to a greater or lesser degree, but to explain the opportunities, the value of an entrepreneurial ecosystem that can grow globally is a challenge on its own to anyone. Then to translate that. So So that's really a goal, and we provide numerous written submissions to them, and we have really specific low-hanging fruit goals. And it's really great. We go there with groups of people, entrepreneurs, a lawyer to business people, and I think they are starting to hear it, and we've got some exciting things.
Okay, you say they are starting to hear it. Now, I always have a challenge with those type of statements, right? Are starting to hear it doesn't mean they're doing anything about it right now. So I think for me, the question is, how much has that needle actually moved? Because you can talk until the cows come home.
Okay, so there are two parts of this, the answer.
Right.
The first part is not really very much. Actually, it's not fair. 20 years ago, you couldn't take more than 10,000 Rand out of the country, or was it 20,000 Rand? Whatever. People would say, would you like to go overseas? You can take this briefcase with you.
Yeah.
I was actually offered that once, didn't do it. And then, so that has toned down. There are definitely exemptions that are making it considerably easier, but the fact that they still exist just triggers distrust from the international community. I talk about there's a trust deficit, unfortunately, from the business people of South Africa to the government,
Right.
as well as international people, even more so international. So the fact that it has improved quite a lot, but it's still there, means that, well, why can't, they can reverse it any time they want, and who knows. The second answer to that is I don't really care. We just do it anyway, right? So what we've done is, and when I say do it anyway, there are very clear, transparent and compliant ways to achieve your goal. It just costs the country a lot more.
Oh, exactly.
And sometimes it costs the entrepreneurs a lot more as well. So a great example of this, I must talk about if you don't mind.
Go for it.
About once a week, at least once a week, I get a phone call from somebody saying, Adrian, been put onto you by so-and-so. I've got an investor, but the investor says I must get my IP out of the country. How do I do it? What they mean is that the investor wants to put a few $1 million into their company. He says, I won't put it into South Africa. Set up your Delaware or UK or Irish or Netherlands company.
Right.
And we'll put the money in there, obviously. And then what we'll do is we'll use that money to pay the costs of the South African company. Very basic. Pay the costs of the South African company, and then all's happy. But the IP is here and out of the clutches of Julius and his friends and whoever else that they might be hearing, not me. And then everyone's happy. And then we grow the value there. We sell the company one day, and we've employed hundreds of people in South Africa, and everyone's kind of happy. But that IP can't move out of South Africa because IP is an asset just like a gold bar. Perspective of exchange controls.
Exactly.
It's a tax-generating asset, cannot leave the country without permission of SARB. SARB are famous for never giving permission because they don't understand it or whatever else. They would if they heard this podcast, because I'll tell you how we get over it. Now, the conventional solution to this, which is not our solution, but it's been most law firms, is super simple, depressingly so, because of how complicated it gets made by some advisors and how expensive it is. But it comes down to this. Your first version of our IP will be redundant within 2 or 3 years. Any software is going to be redundant.
Absolutely.
If you don't believe me, take a piece of software and do not maintain it at all, ever again. How quickly will that? It'll just be commercial users. Right, so we embrace that principle. So when someone says, how do I move my IP out of South Africa? I say, don't bother. And they say, I came to the wrong law firm. I say, wait. What we can do, though, is we can legitimately allow an offshore company to use that IP and globally commercialize it, retaining a bit of a commission offshore, right? And then if you put the right people offshore who can legitimately show that they evolve and further develop that IP, then they will own the developed IP, right?
Makes sense.
And within a year or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever they were licensing from South Africa is, to a large degree, irrelevant. And that is the South African IP strategy, which we've published, ipstrategy.co.za, with the support and backing of SA SME funds, the South African Venture Capital Association, Endeavour themselves, and other people. And we published that because sick and tired, frankly, considering where I left and what we're doing now, to see advisors make mountains of this story. And it's that simple. To the point where not only is that simple, but we created a system to verify that it's been properly implemented offshore, which the UK government endorsed as well. It's on the website, ipincubator.co.za. ipincubator.co.uk.
Yeah.
And what that does is it says, look, this is the strategy. We're not bullshitting. Can I say that?
Go for it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Because these are the people offshore. Here's your IP ledger that our company monitors,
Right.
and says for every item of IP that we said we created offshore, these are the names of the people that actually created offshore. And that's what they did. And they performed the functions which are required by basically the International Tax Code to do that. So we're not in the business of bullshitting. I want to help clients create wonderful companies, exit for lots of money, and not collapse at due diligence phase when 10 black-clad balaclava-wearing lawyers arrive for the due diligence and find out that you stole the IP from South Africa.
Absolutely.
Plus, it's irrelevant. You don't need to do it.
Adrian Dommisse, thank you very much for your time. And with lawyers like Adrian, who needs a bottom of the ocean? By the way, if you're one of those lawyers that got offended, get over yourself. I was just kidding. But really, this is what impact is about. It's not just about the innovative business that creates the jobs. It's about the support that allows that business to thrive, to grow, to scale, and to make sure that the benefits that are accrued right here at home. Thank you very much for listening to Innovate Africa. I'll see you next week.